My name is Nina Hughes and I am a senior designer at PMG Group. The brief for this project was about consolidating their team into a smaller space, a new location. They wanted to change up their workstation settings because they were in an older 120-degree snowflake style. So it was really important to have more visibility across the office because those older workstations were creating quite a visual barrier between all the workers. They weren't seeing who was in the office. The major part of the brief was create a space that people wanted to come back in and work in, so feel part of a team rather than not knowing who was in the office. How do we entice them back into the office? One of the big challenges in this space was we had a big curved setting or a big curved glass facade on one side of the building, which is where all the natural light was coming from, and then the other side was a solid wall. So it really dictated where we were going to do our built space. It was a challenge that ended up being a positive in the long run because we were able to give the main workstation areas a lot of natural light, which we wouldn't get in other buildings. The concept for this project was a combination of a few things. We had their branding guidelines that we needed to work with, but we didn't want to be so specific and literal with those. So what we did was we took the colour scheme in their brand guidelines and applied it to a much more natural Australian landscape scheme. It was described as a bush scheme, which brought in a lot more to combat the cool branding colours. AWM was quite pivotal in the concept because a big selling point for this project was the workstations. That's what the management and the workers really cared about, was what their desk was going to look like. And it was a big balance between giving privacy whilst also keeping the visibility. AWM, their product was fantastic because we were able to custom design the screens with chamfered angles on the edges, which still provided cross connection between co-workers, but also back-to-back privacy was quite strong. And with the sit-stand workstations and that function, it was a major selling point, and having the ability to try it out before they could purchase them. So some of the challenges in this fit out was a lot to do with the functionality of how we used certain spaces like the boardroom and how the furniture was going to fit. Some of the clients' existing spaces, they had used the movable training style desks in a boardroom with operable walls. The feedback was it didn't look professional. Our client didn't want to bring their own clients into the space. So we worked with AWM to create this beautiful fixed boardroom table with gorgeous shark nose edges. Everybody loved it, but we also had to think about when that operable wall was open, how was the space going to be used? It ended up being as simple as putting the TV monitors on a swiveled angle so we could position it out in a way that the breakout area could also see what was on the screen. Flexibility was a challenge because there was some of the areas they needed visibility, which we found out later on and not at the start. So we had already planned around a certain function and then we had to pivot from there. There was clear communication and as product, because it was so beautiful in the space, we didn't actually have to change the spec, which was great. One of the challenges we did have with AWM was, we had a games table that we wanted to include in the space, which we ended up doing a ping pong table. And it's really quite challenging to do an attractive ping pong table. We proposed some ideas to the client for a foldable function that could be moved out of the breakout area, but it ended up being AWM's fixed ping pong table that was more of a permanent element that they ended up going with. We've already had the feedback acoustically, people are using it. The fun result for this project was really sleek and really nice. What was great about it is that we had the branding colours in a more of a muted and palatable tone, because quite often we'll get the branding colours that are made for their graphic design packages and they don't always translate to interiors. So we have to be quite particular about how we manipulate them whilst keeping on their brand. I think a really big positive at the end of this project was the workstations. The client thought going from 120 degree to a straight bench at 1.8 meters was going to feel less, but in fact they said the feeling is actually more, and the function of sit to stand and adjustability is such a positive that it has outweighed that reduction of space. We're actually in the process of doing surveys now, but the reaction from higher executives and property management team has been really positive. We've also had really great response from the IT department, which is a hard one to do, to get the IT team on board, but they love the color scheme, they love the functionality of the space, and the boardroom table is really seen as a lot more impressive than what they expected. So they feel proud and they feel energized to be in the space. We love working with AWM. AWM provide some of the best render and quoting system out there, so it's really clear what we're going to get. There are bumps on the road and there's hiccups, and we're picking up on what needs to be changed or what needs to be re-looked at. But AWM are great at doing a lot of the thinking for us well, so they're not going in taking over challenging what we're proposing. Partnership when we work with AWM, and we're delivering a great product at the end, and nobody's going, that's your responsibility and that's ours. It's just a joint effort. With this client, we were engaged to do this site as a pilot site, so it was definitely not guaranteed that we were going to get more work from them. This was a bit of a test to see how we were going to go and what we were going to propose. But what's come of it is we now have a range of the more offices that we're redoing for them across Australia, as well as looking at the headquarters in North Sydney at the moment. So it's a really important client for us, and because our first project has gone really well, we have learnings from this project that we're going to take on to the next projects down the line in the pipeline, and I think it's only going to be positive the more that we do together with this client.